Welcome to Soberly Speaking. I'm Julia Rangiheuia. Julia never identified with having a drinking problem, but she realised alcohol was holding her back and capping her potential. It's a story so many can relate to. Knowing something isn't good for you, not being addicted, yet continuously crawling back to it. Growing up confused about her sexuality and living with internalised homophobia, she would kiss girls while drunk, only to spiral into shame afterward, keeping her stuck in a cycle of self-hatred. Julia took a 6-month break from drinking, which turned into a year, and then a lifestyle. She found purpose, saved a small fortune, and witnessed how one person quitting drinking can lift up others around them. Trigger warning, we discuss themes of substance abuse in this episode. I hope you love this chat with Julia. Julia, what I love about your story is that I read on your page, and listen here, listeners. I never had a drinking problem. I wasn't addicted, and that is why I use the language non-drinker rather than sober. But there definitely was a problem. That could resonate, I think, with majority of my listeners.
Totally.
Can we start with your upbringing in your childhood?
Yeah. So I had a really beautiful upbringing. I was a very sensitive little girl. And so I was challenged at school. I was kind of just good at stuff. And I also, as I've grown up and worked, gone back and done the inner child work and things like that, I've worked out that I didn't have a strong sense of self, a strong sense of identity. And so I was very influenced by those around me. I'm like a people's person. Like, I love people. Are you into human design?
Yes.
I'm a projector.
Oh,
don't
I'm
tell
generator.
me.
No.
Okay.
Okay, I understand your language though, yes.
Yes. And so I care so much for others and I get really invested in people. And I think what that manifested into growing up was that I was just really influenced and I would believe others more than I would believe my own sort of myself, so to speak. And I would just assume that they were right. And so I struggled with bullying and it really impacted me. And it's been an unraveling actually over the last probably 10 years, if I'm honest. The last 5 years have been I've spent the most time in the last 5 years working on these things and working out like how my childhood impacted me and to make me who I am today. But it's been a pretty uncomfortable journey for anyone who is willing to like go back there. There were just a lot of therapy, a lot of transformational training, I've done all kinds of things, a lot of spiritual work. And I definitely feel like today I am, like I was reflecting the other day of my idea probably about 5 years ago of what my higher self looked like. And I feel like I am that person. Obviously there's always more to do and, I want to grow more, but that feels like a real achievement to be like, oh, that person isn't just like so far away. It's like, oh, that's really tangible now. So.
And also so different to what we had thought about ourselves and what we thought this idea of success would be. And we were talking about this off air. Like, I'm sure your highest virgin? You're not a high virgin. I'm sure
How do you know?
Highest.
Maybe I am.
I'm sure your highest version is so different to what you thought it would turn out.
Mm-hmm.
Can we go back to the bullying? I don't want to open up any scars or anything, but was it name calling? Was it physical?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, like I've done so much retrospection on this and it was actually it was verbal stuff. It was leaving me out. It was jealousy. It was just those typical things that kids do that I think some people and some kids just can brush off quite easily. But I'm a Scorpio. We were just talking about that before. I would take a lot of things to heart and I would make it mean that there was something wrong with me. And I had a genuine, like up until I was probably 28 even years old, I thought, how can I just, the more I can be unlike who I really am, the better off I'll be. And so it was just this wearing masks. And this is where the alcohol and things come into it, because if I could escape who I really was, then I would be accepted, then I would be welcomed, then I'd be included, then I'd be liked. And I think initially, for that period of time over those years, I didn't know that I didn't realize that I was operating on that level. I just thought, I'm me and this is like how I survive. And until I really stepped back and I was like, wait, who am I actually? Like, who is the real me? And it wasn't about acquiring anything new. It was actually about removing and coming back to this childlike version of myself that I don't think I actually fully got to explore and express. And so as an adult now, I feel like I'm more childlike than I ever have been. I'm super silly. I'm clumsy. I feel very comfortable to showcase that side of me that once I would have just hidden.
I love that idea of coming back to your child, and it's such a sobering thought, pun intended, of that, who the fuck am I? And that's one thing I've really had to struggle with sobriety, because like yourself, I started drinking really young.
Yeah.
I actually don't even know who the fuck I am. Like, I built my whole personality from 14, from year 8, around drinking and drugs. So yeah, it was we're going to get into that. Do you remember your first drink?
Yeah, would have been at a family function. I'm Austrian and Australian, and so you've got the Europeans who are drinking, like wine, and it's like that kind of vibe, very wholesome. And then the other side of the family were actually quite wild. I have a lot of male cousins, and I was younger than all of them, and so I would look up to them, and it wasn't even just them; it was very accepted, not even just accepted, but encouraged in where I grew up. I went to an all-girls sort of Catholic school, and so we had like the brother schools, and that was the way to connect. Like, I didn't have male friends growing up, and so this idea of like, I want to connect with boys, well, you would do that in those sorts of scenarios, and it was just like binge drinking culture.
Because how old are you?
35.
Okay, yes, we're similar. I'm 31, but I agree. It was the only way you could find connection. Obviously, you don't know this at that time. You just want to get fingered behind a shed. But it was the only way of finding connection, of finding friendship, was drinking.
Yeah.
And I'm sure younger listeners are probably listening like, surely not. But honestly, it was the only way to feel accepted. And from hearing your story, what I'm seeing is you would do anything to fit in.
Totally. Absolutely. And I don't even think I realized like that actually really helped the situation. Like, the alcohol was like a glue in a sense. It was like a ticket out of your reality and out of like who I was, like that sober version, into this more playful version of me, into this one that really could just take on the world. Like, I don't know about you, but I used to think I could do anything, and I would do really reckless things. I look back now, even in my early 20s, of some of my traveling stories, and I'm like, what on earth?
Yeah, we should have been murdered or
like
something.
I should be murdered for sure. I remember being in Salvador in South America for Carnival, and I got so drunk that I needed a IV drip just to sober me up. And like, I mean, I don't know what was like, I was in a different country, a needle going into my arm, and I was like, yeah, no worries. And now there is just absolutely no way. I think there's also that element of like, I really care about my vessel, and I think that comes with age as well. I would just, it's a self-love thing too, like I was young, I was just doing whatever. I wasn't conscious to my behavior. I wasn't thinking about the repercussions. I treated myself like shit because I felt like shit, and I really didn't like myself. And it was a perpetuating cycle of like wanting to explore the world, wanting to have new experiences, wanting to create connection with people, and that being the glue, as I said, yeah.
And there's such head noise at that age, especially of, well, every time I drink and do drugs, I'm so celebrated for that version of
Mm-hmm.
me. Whereas your everyday life, Monday to Friday, you might not, maybe you were really creative and sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And those aren't traits, especially back in those days, that weren't celebrated. Everyone wanted the larrikin, the girl who's getting an IV drip, who everyone was doing it for the plot without, even before we knew what that actually meant.
Yeah.
I want to know what your relationship, and I know that I'm really interested to talk to you because, you don't necessarily have an addiction.
Mm.
Was it just binge drinking on the weekends, or how did that actually look?
Yeah. So I've tried to stop drinking multiple times in my life. I remember when I was about 25, I stopped drinking for about 5 months. That was huge back then, like absolutely wild. And then I'd do 2 months here and a few months there. And really what it came down to for me was I would get debilitating hangovers. I would feel so depressed, and I have experienced depression before, and it was just not, I knew it wasn't worth it. But at that time, I felt so low, especially if I was going through a bout of depression. I was feeling so low, and then I'd go, okay, time to go out and escape, because I'd maybe feel, a little bit better that afternoon. All right, I feel good. Go out, get totally drunk, have an amazing time, end up who knows where. But then I would pay the price the next day. And, not only that, I just noticed that trouble seemed to find me, especially in my relationships. Mostly my romantic relationships, but like I've gone back and like thought about certain dynamics, friendships, relationships, and we would have the most hectic things happen, like phones being thrown, yelling matches, miscommunications, me running off and leaving parties and then like literally not knowing where I was running, and then the police being like, you don't look safe, like picking me up, and then me being in the back of a dimmy van. Dimmy van? Is it
Yeah.
Like, and that, like I hadn't done anything wrong, but I didn't look like I was having a good time. And, all these sorts of little situations just compounding, and me realizing this is really antisocial behavior, very toxic as well. But it was all I knew. It's like, yeah, let's go out and let's, like, who knows what might happen. Like, this could end up being a really great night, or I might end up like with no shoes in, somewhere.
And you start to normalize that behavior, especially with the relationships, because I was the exact same. I would be, running across King's Cross being like, you don't love me. Like,
yes.
And you
dramatic.
Actually, you're not even embarrassed. It's really hard to put into words. You just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
It's like you are so in your own world, and especially me as an ex-addict, it's like, I don't care if I'm hurting people. I don't care about the property around me. You're just in your own little world. I don't care if people like know me and I'm running down the street with no shoes on, trying to run away from my partner. Like, it is crazy how much that becomes normal. And then you get in that cycle of now I'm really fucking hungover. I'm coming down, and we do love each other. And rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat.
So much reckless behavior, and then segue to the shame spiral. And for me as well, there was like a number of other layers too. I was confused about my sexuality for years. And what would happen is I would go out and, the beer goggles, so to speak, would come on, or at the very least my guard would drop, and I would just feel a little bit like just more comfortable to explore. And so I would like make out with girls in the toilets of clubs, and then the next day think back on what I'd done and feel so much shame because I hadn't worked through my own internal homophobia. So that was also like my, it was just, I had access to exploring this part of me that I could have explored in a really healthy way. And I think, probably most people who are a little unsure about that part of themselves, there's probably some sort of like partying culture that's ingrained or connected to that experience in itself. Because yes, you're right. You're not thinking logically. That part of your brain is just, it's gone to sleep. And you don't care how you look. You don't care how ridiculous you seem. The tears that are streaming down your face, your friends looking at you like, have you gone mad? Like, you just don't care. You are just so reckless, and it's just so much deeper, I think, than like, oh, I'm drunk. I think it's like, you've got some work to do.
1000%. When did you first realize you were into girls?
When I was quite young, actually, but there was just no way that I was going to accept that part of myself. And I had a number of things, happen in my life where I noticed I just blocked it out. Like I was just completely in denial, and that's how I had to cope with it at that time until I was old enough and, had enough self-awareness to go, okay, this is probably a thought that I need to explore more. But it didn't cause me too much uncomfortability or anything. I was just kind of like, okay, that's a thought that's there. And it wasn't until I was sort of in my 20s traveling that I was like, okay, like this keeps coming up. And then when I was in my late 20s, I actually engaged in like a relationship with a woman. And it was like falling in love for the first time again. It was really interesting, and it was just crazy. Like it was, yeah. And I feel like me moving overseas allowed me to do that because I could just be fully myself. I didn't need to explain anything to friends that I've had since I was 6 years old. I could just be Jules and just be like, yeah, like this is me. And so I was able to really explore that. And then through that first connection, that didn't last. That was pretty chaotic. It was definitely like a lust thing, and like it caught me off guard. And then after that, I met someone who I like actually fell in love with. And so since then I've had like a number of girlfriends and boyfriends.
It must have felt incredibly freeing from living in Australia, like you said, culturally wasn't okay. You're holding up all of these masks. You're trying to people please. And then you get to live overseas and you get to experience that relationship that you've always wanted to explore.
Oh, definitely. And it was London too. So it was not uncommon there for people to be exploring their bi-curiosity, or like, being bi-curious and being bisexual and all of these. Like it was around the time where gay marriage was legalized in Australia. Yeah. So I was like, okay, like it's legal, like no one could tell me off. So I got kind of lucky in that regard. But I was actually, the reception from my loved ones was actually far better than I expected. I thought this was going to be like the end of my relationships with people. And so that was great, just to have people just be like, we love you, It doesn't matter. Yeah.
When things happen like that in our lives, we sometimes look at other areas and think, oh, maybe they'll be okay with XYZ then, if they received that so welcomely, like with open arms.
Yeah.
Did you look at your life then and think, maybe I am hitting the drugs and drinking too hard? Or was it just like, oh, that's just the thing I keep doing?
Look, I never did anything. I was never alone. Like, I mean, I may have had like, a glass of wine with dinner on my own, but I never got to a point where I was anti-socially drinking or anything like that. It was more so once I had one, I was going to take it as far as it possibly could. And I remember this particular period of my life literally being like, if I have one drink, it means that I'll have 10. It wasn't just one, it was 10. And it was when like Patron was like, Cafe Patron was like really in. Is it still in? I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, well
I know the period you're talking about with the little straws and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so Cafe Patron, and I do these Cafe Patron shots, and I believe it's got caffeine in it too. So that would just send me. And I would just be, when you see like the really floppy, just all over the shop, like that was me. But I don't know. I feel like my parents were really good role models. And yeah, I think that if I came to them and I said, I've got a problem, they would have been supportive, but it would have absolutely not been accepted in the sense of like, they wouldn't have just been like, oh, you're right. Like, it's all good. They would have just been like, they would have 100% been like, you've got to stop this. And I was always a very good girl growing up. Like I didn't like wag school and sneak out and lie to my parents. I was very by the book. And so that kind of, I carried that with me, I think, into my adulthood. Like I'm really open with my family, but at the same time, like I care a lot about what they think. So I feel really grateful for that I would always have support in that respect. For me, it was more of like a experience I was going through on my own, because it was intrusive thoughts, it was self-hatred, it was these depressive thoughts, it was constant issues with people in my life that I actually loved and I was pushing them away, or, you know, I had unresolved issues that I hadn't explored yet. And so I was acting out, literally acting out.
So you knew that alcohol was the common denominator.
Yeah,
like
totally.
That wasn't lost on you.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about your last days of drinking, because I know, I think I read somewhere that, you know, when you decided to stop drinking, even if it was for a small stint, you were in a bathtub.
Yes.
I actually loved reading that, by the way.
Yeah. So, yeah, I got to this point in 2022, I think it was. No, sorry, the end of 2023. And I had a boyfriend at the time. And we were on the way to his Christmas party. And I'd really wanted to go and I wanted to connect with all the people there. And I went and bought a bottle of Prosecco. I was like a Prosecco girl. Like me on 2 glasses of Prosecco, best
Woo
fun.
Woo girl.
Like literally, like really awesome version of me. Me on more than 2 glasses of Prosecco and it's sloppy and it gets really ugly. And so I, during COVID, was battling, like, you know, because we were home a lot and, you know, we wanted to sort of connect and have these like blowouts in a way. And so I was probably drinking a little bit more than I normally would during the week because I didn't have to go to work. And so it was like this compounding effect over a few years. And I think the biggest thing is that with that partner at the time, I just noticed every time we drank or I drank, a problem would arise. Mm-hmm. And I just knew, I was like, you're the common denominator. Like when he was drinking, it was worse, I think, because then I would be, you know, frustrated at his behavior, but not that it was like problematic. It was just normal drunken behavior. And when I think when 2 people are drunk, there's just so much room for error. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, essentially this relationship had been, we were on, we were off. I'd moved to Bali. I'd come back. We've gotten back together. It was a really big one for me, a very deep connection, one that I'll have reverence for forever. But I just knew on this particular night when I went to this event, I was like, I don't want this. I was looking at it because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. Because when I open this bottle, like we might break up, because at this point I just genuinely was like, it was, who knows what might happen. It could go really well. It could go either way. And so I went to the event and then I actually didn't go in. I just went home. And I remember going home being like, what's going on with me? Like this isn't me, just literally not going to a party that I'm invited to, that I've been looking forward to. And I had this night to myself where I just thought, I don't feel good. Like something's up. And the next day, my boyfriend at the time and I said to him, hey, I'm thinking of doing a year off drinking. Like, what do you think? And he was like, oh, wow, that's big. I'm like, yeah, I know. And he goes, well, how about I'll do it with you if we do 6 months? And I was like, yep, okay, cool. Also, there's another layer to this. I knew that we were breaking up, but we hadn't broken up, and it wasn't said, but it was a feeling. And I also knew that I'd lived in Bali for the previous year when we'd broken up the first time. And I hope this isn't confusing. No,
I'm with you.
You're
right with you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I didn't drink very much during that time, and I was really enjoying that. And I just knew if we break up again and I'm drinking, I'm not going to be okay. Like I'm going to spiral into a depression. And so I truly believe a version of me from the future was like, you need to put the bottle down right now. And so I said 6 months off drinking. Within 2 weeks, we'd broken up. And I was like, thank God I'm not drinking right now. I moved to Bali and I went on this whole solo pilgrimage where I really deeply explored all of the facets of me that I've just needed to work through over the years. And I really went deep. I spent a lot of time alone with no alcohol. And so 6 months went by and then I thought, I just feel like I'm getting going. Like I don't even feel better. I don't know about you, but I did not even feel better after 6 months.
For the first month especially, I put on weight. I had the worst adult acne.
Wow.
I was suddenly staying indoors. But I was like the ultimate woo girl, right? So I'm doing long lunches every second day, benders. And now I'm inside watching movies every day. Like, do you know how jarring that was? Whew. It was And that's why I'm actually so against people doing not like dry Jan, but just, you know, a lot of people go, I'll just do a month and then I'll see. Please don't, because often, especially if you really have a problem, you'll feel a lot worse.
Yeah.
But yes, continue with your 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. Exactly. I didn't feel better. And I was like, it almost made me think maybe I'll just go back to drinking. Like this, what was the point of this? Like I was literally like, I actually feel worse. I felt more tired and I actually developed insomnia, which was, can I swear?
Of course.
It was so fucked up. Like I can't explain. If you have never had sleeping issues, you will never understand how intense it was. I don't know if it was a byproduct of the like not drinking. I think it was a few things that were happening in my life. But for about 9 months, I slept less than 4 hours a night. I ended up just learning how to function on that much sleep. But it was so I'm still recovering from it. I'm still recovering after that was like 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years ago now.
I want to talk about your mental health because you've touched on it throughout this story of your depressive episodes. When did you first have a depressive episode throughout your life?
I think I actually would have experienced some depression when I was young, but I wouldn't have known what it was. So yeah, I think that I was always susceptible. Then when I was 23, I had a breakup and I started to feel depressed. It's so interesting because now I fully understand what that means. But at the time, you're like, what's wrong with me? Like, I don't feel good. And then family members, why? I don't know. And that was when I knew something was not right because there wasn't a specific, like, yeah, I was kind of going through this breakup, but like after a while, I was like, that's not in the forefront of my mind right now. Like, yes, that's there, but there is nothing catastrophically going wrong. And so I don't understand why I'm feeling so low. So that was the first time. And yeah, it was a messy time. It was because I just didn't know. I didn't understand that. You know what a word is and but you don't quite know what the feeling attached to it is. And so that was me going through that period of working it out. And then, like I experienced depression a number of other times throughout my 20s and even my 30s, to be honest. But I think having the awareness of, I know myself more, I know what this is, and I know at least a few things to do. And obviously my toolkit has grown massively. And now that I'm a coach as well, I'm super into nervous system regulation. And so I've got tools. So I go, okay, I'm not going to panic and freak out when I wake up and I'm not feeling good. Like I can often not feel that great when I wake up. And then across the course of the day, I start to feel better. That's just sort of how I'm wired. Some days I wake up with heaps of energy. It just depends, right? Yeah. But I'm not going to freak out if I'm feeling a little bit depressed in the morning. I've got a toolkit and I know what to do, whether it be mindfulness, somatic work, exercise, some of the more simple things. And then on top of that was having a really supportive network of, I've been seeing my therapist now for like 5 years. She knows me really well. I don't see her often because I don't feel like I need to right now. But if I'm in a time of crisis, then I book in. I prioritize that, And I think also like I've saved a lot of money not drinking.
Oh, babe, preach,
right?
Preach.
Like literally a small fortune. And so it's like that's the money that I'll use for my mental health. So yeah, I take it day by day. I did feel in around my birthday last year in November, I was feeling really low. But I seem to get myself out of it because I've done so much work on myself and in this sort of field, I guess. And so I just know what to do now.
Yeah. What made you keep going once you hit that 6 month mark? Like if you're not seeing results, and especially if you weren't actually addicted, I'd be like, I'm going back to the whole hog. I'm going back onto the drinking, back onto everything.
To be honest, it was because I spent, like I said, a lot of time alone in Bali over that period of time. My sole focus was building my business. I was building out online courses. I was filming every single day, uploading modules. I had clients that I was tending to. That and you sort of moving through like this breakup that really affected me for over a year. It was one of those long ones. Sometimes it's like a couple months later, you're like, oh, I'm good. This was not that. This like completely, I excavated every little part of my psyche during that time. That breakup represented so much more than just I'm not going to be in a relationship with this person. It sent me back to the childhood stuff, to the bullying stuff, to just some of my shadows that I really was like, oh, I've got to take a deeper look here. And so I wasn't in that I want to go out and meet people mindset. That wasn't the headspace I was in. I was very spending a lot of time alone. I was just very insular. And I just knew it was not the right choice. I just knew I'm in Bali. You know, I don't have a support system around me. I don't really even have any friends that are going out partying right now. I'm not going to welcome that into my life at this stage. I've done that before. I know what it looks like. It's fun. It's also horrifically, catastrophic. So this is the time for me to just steer clear of that. And then I got to the year, and that was a really huge achievement. It felt like a long time, that first year. It felt like a long one. And what I loved the most was I started thinking about, right, okay, I've done the year. I wanted to do 12 months. What am I going to do to celebrate? And so I was thinking about what champagne I was going to buy, like a top-notch bottle, and I was going to pop it at New Year's where I went camping with all my friends, and it was going to be this big celebration. And the more that I sat with it, the more I was like, I don't actually want to do that. Like, that's actually not what I want to do. And so I didn't do it. And then I did a whole other year. And then I got to New Year's again, and I was like, and by that point, it wasn't even a question. Like, I don't even think about it anymore. And I completely understand when you're drinking, or you're a drinker, but then you're maybe having a night off drinking, or you're trying to be good for a week or something, and a girlfriend invites you out for dinner. And well, she's going to want to drink a glass of wine. And you're going through, how am I going to do that? I'm going to be boring. How am I going to say I'm not going to drink? What's that going to look like? I don't know.
It consumes you.
It consumes you.
It's just easier to say I'm not drinking and then just leave it there. Instead of maybe I'll have wine. Where should I park the car? What's she going to drink? Oh my God. The head noise.
It was a whole thing. And now I'm like, why on earth would it matter what that other person is doing and what I'm doing? Like, I'm great. Like, I'm fun. I'm entertaining. I don't need that to make it something else. I can just be me. And what I've noticed is the sort of the flow-on effect, the domino effect of that is that when people would spend time with me, they'd be like, oh, I won't drink.
Yeah.
And not that I've never ever been like judgmental, or I'm like, you do you, boo. I'm just doing me. Let's, have fun together. It doesn't matter. I've never cared. Like, I'm not like that. But it just naturally, people are like, oh yeah, I don't need to have a drink. I'll just get something else. And then also, I guess because of the work that I do, and, I'm active online, I have had literally in the past 2 years, dozens of people message me and say, your video inspired me, and I'm not drinking this year. And I've heard from so many people that they did all of last year without booze, or at the very least they did, a number of months. So just those small impacts, it feels really, really good. Because I was influenced the same way. There was this.
Yeah, I saw you tagged. Is it a male?
Yeah, Ollie.
Yeah,
so Ollie, he is a gosh, I'm gonna totally butcher this. He doesn't have a leg, so somehow he had an injury, some sort of an accident at work. And he is an incredible surfer. He loves all sorts of adventure sports. And he does this with his prosthetic leg. And it was really inspiring. And I just thought he was a cool guy. I was like, this guy is awesome. So I'd watch his videos. And one day I watched a video of him skydiving, literally landing to cheers his mate with a beer. And at the end of it was like first drink in 365 days. And it was just like an epic video. Like, I mean, he was literally landing. He landed standing up from his skydive and like, cheers his friend, and then like sculled this beer. And I just sort of was like, oh, okay, that's cool. He's done a whole year off booze. And then there was this app that tracked it. And at that time I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm going to get this app. So it was just those little things to hold me accountable. So yeah, really, like if I don't think people realize how impactful their decisions are. You know, it does make a difference. These small, tiny little shifts do influence, I guess, the consciousness of the world. It does have a far greater impact than you could ever imagine.
And it really, your decision to go sober and to choose yourself and to ultimately choose self-love above all, it seeps into every other area of your life. And like you were saying, that people around you are now getting affected. Yes, they might not be like, oh, I'm never drinking again.
Yeah.
But they start to love themselves more. They start to have so much more self-worth, and it's just by being in your presence. Jules, I want to know, what was the biggest difference for you between year 1 of sobriety and year 2?
I think year 1, I was like, so today's actually my 2 years, 3-month anniversary.
Cute.
By the way. So
I
that's
feel
really
honoured.
cute. Yeah. I just noticed that. So that's my point. I just looked at the date before and I was like, oh, okay. Like for me, it's just like, you know, whatever. The first year it was very much like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, you know. And it was also navigating the first period of being like, well, I don't want to be influenced to drink because I didn't have that strength yet. I was still a little bit like rocky. And so my advice to people is that if this is something that you want to do, there may be a period of time where your life looks a bit different for a while and you don't, you know, engage in the late night partying or the whatevers, like the, you know, going out to clubs or my life has shifted. I used to do a lot of that in my 20s. Now I don't really go to clubs and things anymore. So my life has naturally just shifted. But there were a few things that I had to sit out of back then. Whereas now it is not even a thought. Like I will never miss out on something. I just get to a point where I'm like, I'm actually tired and I know I'm tired and I'm not going to use something to stay awake for the next 4 hours. I'm just going to go to bed. And I don't have that FOMO. Whereas I think in the beginning there was this FOMO of like, oh, everyone's up, everyone's having a good time. And just the constant, like if anyone offered me a drink, it would be like trigger, like, and then it would be a moment of, is it a maybe? Because I think that if your intention is super clear, there is never a maybe, and then there's never any wavering. Whereas if it's I'm trying to do this thing, you've just got to be like, I'm doing this thing. And so, hey, do you want a drink? People are still to this day, and I laugh. You know, they go, hey, Jules, did you want to? Oh my God, why do I ask you every time? And I'm like, babe, I don't expect you to remember what I'm doing. It's fine.
They're just being nice. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
But it's not even I don't consider it. It's like, it'd be almost like someone asking me if I wanted to eat, you know, chicken feet.
Yeah, like
I don't.
You're never saying yes.
Like, so I'm like, nah. Like it's not even, I'm like, I'm on to the next thing. So there's that. The other thing that I've noticed is different. Well, this isn't really answering your question, but something I have noticed in my life that is different is dating.
Are you single?
I'm single. Yeah.
Yes. Can we talk about that? How do you date sober?
That's right. So that's been interesting. I noticed because I was going through that first year of sort of really not being open. I mean, I was open, but I was going through a kind of a deep sort of a difficulty with a breakup, or I was just going through it. I was going through a deep healing process during that time. I wasn't like, cool, I can just go out, meet randoms, have a drink. That will make me feel less nervous, because I got really nervous around relating in general. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, it's me. Like, I'm so like, you know, I flirt with people really easy. I'm such a good time. And I just lost that. I got really like awkward. And I was like, not drinking is really making this, you know, being single thing difficult.
Do you think there would be judgment?
No, it was just that I felt I probably wasn't ready. I was probably not ready, and I was trying to push myself to do something that I wasn't quite ready to do. And so then, dating people has just been because people will be like, oh, let's go get a drink. Like that's just what you do. And then most of the time people were really good about it, but I feel like sometimes people are like, oh, okay, you don't drink. That's boring. It's like, well,
but they're not the people for us, right?
That's right. So I probably will never be in a relationship. I've never even clocked this until right now. I probably will never be in a relationship with someone who is a big drinker.
Yeah.
I have no problem with my partner's, drinking. I've just ended something with someone and she would drink, when we would out. And I actually really loved it because it worked for her and she knew when to stop. And that's not my life. That's her. That's great. We would have a great time. But overall, it would be pretty rare that we would drink together. And so, like now that I'm single again, it's like, oh, okay, you don't have, again, that sort of, just that thing that just kind of softens.
The social lubricant.
Yeah, the social, exactly. Thank you. Well said.
I don't know if this is an out the gate question, but I feel like I can ask you. With your sobriety, obviously we have a lot of clarity and a lot of introspection. Do you feel more drawn to boys or girls now?
Really, it depends on someone's energy. And that's why I'm like not very good with these dating apps because I'm like, I can't get your energy.
Read you.
I can't read it. I really need to be in a room with someone and it's either on or it's off. It's like, it's like yes or it's a no. Very clear for me. I was definitely dating women for a while there. And then I had this, a boyfriend for a number of years. And that was my longest relationship in quite some time. But I don't really feel like that's how I operate. It really just has to be like the perfect concoction of like, I feel good about this. We're having awesome chats. Like I need to be able to laugh. I need to be able to get real with someone. I go really deep, really quick. And so that's super important. But most of all, I really want to have fun. And so, play and fun, adventure, and honesty, like I'm really hard on myself and that's something that I'm working on, but I'll be very quick to be like, yeah, I'm going to own that. Like I could have done better there. And I think that's because I have self-confidence. I really feel strong in who I am and I know my flaws. I know my strengths. Like I'm not confused by that. And so I'm very open to admitting when I'm wrong. So essentially it's not really about the sex of someone,
just the energy,
the gender. It's really the energy. Yeah,
I respect that.
Yeah.
I'm going to start wrapping up the interview, but I would love to talk to you about how much more aligned you feel now. And I don't think it's a coincidence that once you stop drinking, you've fallen into this work and you feel so purposeful.
Yeah.
Could you talk to my listeners about the difference of how you used to operate versus how you feel aligned now?
Yeah, this was another huge factor for why I stopped drinking because I was fully committing to my business. Talk is Cheap Academy was like my baby. I was moving to Bali, so I knew that I was going to be abroad in a country where you can't make money in the country. Like I couldn't just go and get a random job. Like it was only going to be online. That was 100% my focus. That and then dealing with, the healing after a breakup. So it gave me so much clarity. It also created so much clarity and so much space that it was uncomfortable too. And I really had to look at things, which you can easily just not want to do. I can imagine that it can get really dark in there. So sometimes it's like, I'm just going to go back to what I know, the escapism kind of behaviors. But I think that for the work that I do, it is in alignment for me to not drink. I'm not saying it's a necessity, but it feels really right for me. I am challenging people all the time. And so it wouldn't be right for me to not challenge myself. It wouldn't be right for me to not be integral. And that's one of my biggest values is integrity. And so if I'm asking you to go and do this inner work on something or limiting belief work or put videos out, multiple times a week and really refine the way that you're speaking, that's the work I do. I'm an on-camera confidence coach, and I help people with their public speaking. Like that stuff, you can't really be mixing with alcohol if you want to be clear-headed and you want to have a regulated nervous system. So it all goes hand in hand, and it wasn't like an intentional thing. It's kind of like, this is just my life. Like this is, how it's like your message, your message. Same with you. This podcast is because you've gone on this sobriety journey. it's kind of just all unfolded that way. And then I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So for me, it was crucial to be able to have the energy while I was moving through those difficult things, the insomnia, moving country, blah, 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 all the things. I was like, I need to have as much capacity as possible. I cannot be in bed hungover every Sunday. That's 52 days a year that I will be wasting. No, it's not. That's not where I'm at in my life right now. So yeah, got a bit passionate there for you, Jules.
Jules, I could listen to your voice all day long, but this will be my final question. Going back to that little Julia who felt so unseen, but she was this beautiful, creative, empathetic girl. How do you honour your inner child today?
Oh, I talk to her every day.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have a very very well thought out morning routine. And I've learned so many different ways to work out when she's speaking and what her voice is and how I can connect with her more and how I can soothe her. From affirmations, from, doing some parts work to just literally just doing my own mindfulness work and just being super aware of what's happening in front of me and what that is igniting in me from a different time. Most of the time it's igniting something from a different time. So being very gentle with her. I've learned a lot of different soothing processes that I can literally, like I've gotten to the point over my journey with this work where I will literally pull over to the side of the road if I'm driving because I've gone through an emotional process because something's triggered me. I've gone through a thing. Beliefs are coming up or thoughts are coming up, a voice is speaking to me and I'm like, I need to meet that voice right now. And I use life as the medicine. I really do. And so I'm doing that healing work consistently. And so it doesn't feel that difficult anymore. It's just like, this is a part of who I am. She is very much present all the time. And I ensure that I let her know that I'm seeing her, and I think that's been really healing.
Well, I see her and she is so bright.
Thank
you. I'm so grateful for you to coming on Soberly Speaking. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I love chatting.